Unqualified Heroes! Back at it again, Season 2, almost the end of the year. I am your co-host, Daniel Perez.
And I'm Messi Morales, and we are Unqualified Heroes.
Yes, sir. Today we are joined by two fantastic guests, no pun intended, Forrest and Matt from the Don't Be a Hero podcast. Let's go!
Hey!
What's up?
I tell you what, straight off the bat, we need an intro like that in our lives.
The energy in the... Oh, I'm feeling it. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Hey, guys.
I'm doing great.
How
How you
doing?
guys doing?
How's the other side of the pond?
Absolutely freezing. Is it warm? Is it your like summer over there or what? What is it warm or?
Right now, for me, I'm in
kind
Florida.
of chilly.
It's kind of... Well, he's in Texas. Texas is colder than Florida. Florida has summer all around the year. So right now it's like around 60s, 80s, around that temperature.
Nice.
So it's alright. It's a good
Yeah,
weather.
over here it's like 50s, 60s, but hey, it's still good.
I'm assuming you're talking in Fahrenheit because
Yes,
if,
Fahrenheit.
if it was Celsius, Jesus Christ, you guys need to find an ice pack immediately.
I forgot about that. I forgot.
Yeah. Always throws me.
We're
That's
the only
so
people who are like, yeah, let's use Fahrenheit for whatever odd reason.
It's
Because
hilarious.
America.
Brilliant.
No, thanks for having us, guys. It's so exciting being here.
Absolutely. So, just tell the fans, the listeners, who you guys are, what you guys do, and yeah.
Cool. Go on, Forrest. You do it. You do it today.
So we are Don't Be a Hero podcast. We're going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe one step at a time. We're currently at Phase 4. We've just finished She-Hulk, much to Matt's absolute disgust. But yeah, we're making our way through the MCU. We cover loads of hero films or TV shows, a bit of everything really. But yeah, that's us. Mm-hmm. Thrilled to be on here.
Yeah. So, today is the day that we talk about, depending on whether you are disagreeing with this take, but Fantastic Four, The Rise of the Silver Surfer came out on 2007, and for some people, it's like one of the worst thing ever that ever was made in this world, but some people like it. So we're here going to talk about it from the beginning to end. So I want to ask you guys, starting with Matt, initial thoughts on this movie.
Okay, so I've got to say it's been a good 10 years since I've seen this movie. For good reason. I mean, it's one of those movies where you're like, it's definitely made in the time when it was made, with the effects that it had and the storytelling that it had. It's like very of the Sam Raimi kind of universe in terms of the storytelling, the color palette of the movie, the way the stories are told, the way some of the characters are played out as well. There were some moments I kind of like really enjoyed, but there were a lot of moments I was like, wait, what is going on? What are these lines? How is the movie moving? It was nostalgic. I want to say that's the word for me. It was nostalgic because I did feel like because I remember vividly being 17 when this movie came out, and I was like, I went to the movies, I went and saw it, and of the time when I watched it, 17-year-old me loved it. I actually thought it was all right. But like watching it back now, I'm like, nah, man, no, this is all wrong. I think maybe we've kind of, in terms of like, MCU, DC fans, maybe we've all kind of like grown in terms of like deeper storytelling. Now we're used to seeing deeper stories being played out with our superheroes, and with this, it was like so surface level. So yeah, it was a disappointment, but nostalgic at the same time.
I do agree with you on the last part you mentioned that it could have been for when the movie's PG, it's not even PG-13. So when I was 7 years old, I was 17. I was just 7. I thought this movie was like the best thing any Marvel project or any superhero project could have done. Just like anything that came out back in the day. So I do see that we're podcasters. So now we have to make and think even deeper on a movie. So now we have that process mind. Then looking at a movie like this, like shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What about you, man? What do you think?
I'm very similar. I think we're looking at it from a guise of 2023, and I think if you look at there are certain things about the Iron Man. So we look at the beginning of the MCU, 2008, and there are certain parts of what were a comic book movie that were put in that you just wouldn't put in there now. But actually, there were certain scenes where I thought, the effects aren't bad. The actual, some of the action sequences, not bad at all. I think for me, I'm not quite as drastically like, this is awful, but I'm also not like, this is one of the greatest things. I think you kind of go, it's all right. It's in the middle. It's not utterly terrible, but it's certainly not something that you come back to and go, that, this is a film that I can constantly come back and watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with CGI coming out on that time. And the 27, I thought it was pretty good. Even watching it, I finished it last night. I tried to watch it the whole week. I kept falling asleep watching it, so yeah. But the CGI, it was good for the time of the year they came out, because movies nowadays has worse CGI than that. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah,
think,
it's
Danny?
interesting because, that decade when superhero movies really started becoming a thing with Iron Man, the Fantastic Four movies, X-Men, Spider-Man, all those, the CGI was pretty good back then. CGI hasn't really been an issue until as of recently, the past couple years. But, I agree with most of what Matt and Forrest have been saying. As a kid, and even not just as a kid, before rewatching it right now, I had such great opinions about this movie. I was like, this is a good movie. I don't know why people hated on the OG Fantastic Four. This was good. I remember as a kid, I had Fantastic Four, everything. I had Fantastic Four toys, my bed sheets for Fantastic Four. I just loved Fantastic Four back then. And then now rewatching, I'm like, why did I ever really like this that much?
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, this isn't what I remember it to be.
No, that's it. Yeah.
I don't know why. I was just this is not what I remember this was. And I feel like I rewatched this, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago. Not that recently, but maybe a couple years ago, and I still had positive opinions. But I think after having a podcast, really diving deeper into movies, and then now watching this, I'm like, yeah, this is actually not good.
This is the same year Spider-Man 3 came out, wasn't it? I think Spider-Man 3 was 2007.
2007, I think it was.
Wow, so not a great year for Marvel.
Not at all. Messi, what do you think about this?
I obviously do agree with everybody, and I think my point of view is almost very similar to everybody. The story was all over the place in the sense that there was no superheroes in this movie at all. There was no crime fighting. There were nothing. They were just being dramatic over a wedding most of the movie.
So true.
I guess yeah. What you said earlier, Matt, the nostalgic out of it, because we grew up. Well, we didn't grow up watching it. We just saw it as kids, and then we grew up thinking this movie was great, and then we're like, oh my god, we're gonna go back and see this movie. I was so excited to watch this movie again, to talk about it with you guys. But it was I was texting Danny while we're watching, and it's like, dude, why is this movie like this? It was bad. I finished the movie. I text Danny, this movie was ass. Literally just that. It's just But there were some cool things. There was some cool CGI with the Silver Surfer when the bomb was coming to him, and then he just sucked it in with his surf. There were some cool parts, but it wasn't enough for the movie to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Look, I remember this movie being good and like the reboot being ass. If now I'm
Yes.
rewatching this and this is ass, how bad was the reboot? Like, how bad was the reboot actually? The reboot must have been so bad. Oh my god!
I think what got me as like a surprise when I rewatched this was genuinely how bad some of the acting is. Right, and that can't be the fault of the studios behind it. You know, and some of this casting is like top level casting, but just the acting is so wooden throughout, and it's just so like there's just no third dimension whatsoever. It's like we're getting married. I like you. Let's make love. Let's have a fight. Oh, I'm getting off with this bird, and it's just like there's no like interesting subplot whatsoever, and there's nothing for them to act.
Nothing. I was actually looking at videos. Maybe I was like trying to see if I can find some positive out of this movie, and I didn't. So I came up on a video of Jessica Alba just talking about her performance in the movie, and apparently, as she says, the director was making her look more prettier than using her like her acting abilities. Especially for that crying scene that she did after the wedding got crashed and all that stuff. That scene, she has more like a dramatic effect, crying and all that crap. And the director came out saying, "No, be more prettier." So maybe was it the actor's fault or the director's fault? At this point, it was 2007 and we're 2023, so I think it was everybody's fault at this point. So.
Yeah, but you totally raise a valid point. It's it's if you haven't got me and Matt are actors, and if you haven't got a good script and you've also got a really a bad director or a bad creative team, you can only be as good as the people around you, right? So if there's very little substance in what you're trying to portray, then you're not going to be. But I was very surprised at how bad Jessica Alba was in this. But like you say, Messi, I think most of that is probably the direction, to be honest.
It was just all surface level, wasn't it? Really, there was no real depth to any character, and just the Silver Surfer coming in around a wedding just felt like an inconvenience, and they mentioned they were talking about Galactus, for crying out loud. Like, this is a massive thing to talk about, and as well to introduce as well for the first time, really in cinema, to hear Galactus as well, and like don't even see it, like you don't even get anything that comes from it. There was loads of missed opportunities, but again, it goes back to me thinking like, well, back then we didn't have Kevin Feige like playing through this whole big 15-year project, phase 1, 2 and 3 going all the way to Endgame and beyond. Like, we didn't have that yet, so no one would have known how to tell these types of stories. They're still kind of testing the ground. That with the success of Spider-Man 2 and 1 and 2 and 3, that's what they were probably hoping with this. But like, it just didn't pay off. There was just nothing really of any substance whatsoever. But I want to say, in terms of like,
good like actor. I mean, I wouldn't say good actor, but like actor that I kind of could see resemble what they were playing was Chris Evans in Human Torch for this specific sequel. I don't exactly remember the original one, but for this sequel, I was like, okay, I could kind of see Human Torch being like Johnny being like that type of personality.
Yeah, I mean that's that in terms of his role. That was so. It was there with the comedy effect, but there was a genuine story with Johnny Storm. Him kind of wanting to prove himself again. Him feeling like he's messing up a lot. He wants to do right by his friends. He wants to do right by his sister as well. And so there was that. And I think that was the only thing that kind of, you could tell that Chris Evans, again, if we're talking about being given a poor script, that was the one thing that he was quite clearly holding on to for his character arc. But I also thought, I thought Doug James as Silver Surfer, actually, because he didn't voice it, did he? It was Lawrence Fishburne that actually voiced Silver Surfer, but he was the body of
really?
The Silver Surfer.
I did not know that one was just the voice.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It's a voice and a different person, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, having Lawrence Fishburne doing the voice makes sense. That's all great. But I thought Doug James actually as the physicality of the character works really well, and I thought it was quite interesting, and how they kind of managed to do CGI and practical around that as well. Quite clever.
Look, my biggest issue, I don't know about you guys, but I had like there's a lot of issues with this movie, let's be real. But like, but when we talk about the biggest issue, the most glaring one to me was, I was looking at the times of these movies. The first one was like, I think a little over 2 hours, and this one was about 90 minutes. So an hour and a half. And as we were going through this movie, and it was like wedding stuff, nothing really big happened. I looked at the time of like when Johnny went to go chase after Silver Surfer when he crashed the wedding and stuff like that. That's basically when everything started kicking off.
Yeah.
It was at about 27, 28 minutes. So basically a whole third of the movie was just pointless. Like, you can't have 33% of the movie like not be pointless, and then now you're rushing everything else for a whole hour. That I know Messi had said it to me the other day, that it was like you didn't even really have a fight scene in the end. Like, you had something very small, but it was like you were just speed racing everything else because you decided to spend 30 minutes out of a 90-minute movie just focusing on a wedding.
Well, and also, you know, Danny, we can't have too much plot going on when we've got to watch Reed Richards dance on a dance floor with two women for 10 minutes, because of course that was so pivotal to what we needed to watch, was just him dance with two women, so Jessica Alba could come along. Oh my God, I thought we were getting married. What? Yeah.
Answering all of the questions of the characters. How does he dance? I've always wondered that.
Jesus. But actually, you know, and I'm kind of preempting this, so, you know, I'm sure we'll come back to this. But what it did signify for me is how cocksure they were that they were going to get a trilogy. Because actually, you can afford to do what they did with this film if you know that you've got a third film on the way.
Yeah, I actually had looked it up. So I was like, oh, why did Fantastic Four get canceled and all this stuff? I was trying to figure out more information about this. They actually had planned for it to be 4 movies. So, I don't know, a quadrilogy? I don't know what a 4-movie thing is called.
Sounds cool.
But like, they planned it to be 4 movies, and then after the second one, they're like, all right, no more. But what was like, although let's be real, it was pretty bad, but like, it made its money. Did it make as much money as the first one, or maybe as much as they intended? No, because or else it wouldn't have been canceled. But it did make back its money and a little bit more. So I thought that was pretty interesting because, you know, nowadays money talks. Is like, whatever, it can be the worst thing in the world, but we made our money. Even if we don't make our money, they're like, we're just gonna make a second season. We're just gonna make another show, and then now you got things like She-Hulk that we don't ask for. But so it's like, what are we doing here? But yeah, they just ended it after the second one. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Cool. That's interesting, isn't it? I think. Do we know why it got cancelled? Just because? Is it just because of
the reviews and stuff like that? People weren't liking it.
Yeah, fair play. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like with the failure of Spider-Man 3. And then that happening, and obviously they had a 4th in development anyway at that time, and it's quite clear that they clearly were, even, you know, and this is the other thing, Kevin Feige was part of this movie. He was part of all of these movies as an executive producer, so they quite clearly knew and thought, well, yeah, no, this is going to be a 4-film project. Of course, we'll get it, we'll get the budget, we'll get the money, it's all fine. But at the end of the day, again, I think we're probably experiencing it now, aren't we, right? Like in certain movies, certain Disney Plus TV shows in the MCU that we're kind of going, this isn't good enough. So clearly the fans were like, this isn't good enough, and they got rid of it. So there is, it's funny to think about it. If you reflect it, it's kind of like history repeating itself, maybe, what we're kind of going through right now as well, with only seeing Deadpool coming out next year and all these delays, you know, maybe.
Even Bob, the CEO of Disney, he came out and said that we're gonna stop making pointless sequels to movies. So like, they're listening now. Finally, it's been over 10 years since this movie came out, and sequels that are pointless are still coming out, and movies aren't even, us fans aren't even asking for it, and they do something like this. They come out and they suck. I don't know what's your take on Doctor Strange 2. We weren't really big fans of it. It was okay. It was an okay movie. It made its money back. We got one of the greatest villains. Not greatest villains, a cool villain, in the movie with Wanda. But was it really necessary of this type of sequel, something similar to it? I guess what it could, when Bob came out and said that, then they should rethink better on making a decision on what a sequel could be. So.
See, it's funny with Multiverse of Madness. So me and Forrest have very different opinions on the movie, because I'm a massive Sam Raimi fan. So seeing that kind of horror element in the MCU, I really enjoyed. But Forrest,
I like
mate,
that part. I do like that.
But you hated it, didn't you, Forrest?
I thought it was a steaming pile of turd, quite frankly, lads. Honestly, I thought it was awful. Yeah,
so funny. Yeah, when we did the podcast and reviewed it, it was just. I was like, I thought it was good. And Forrest was like, no, it wasn't.
Here's 200 reasons why I think it's a load of crap.
It was.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was a very controversial movie. There's a lot of different opinions on it.
Yeah.
Another a big thing about Fantastic Four is their decision for certain things, which is basically the script. And one of those decisions is Galactus is not a person being. It's a planet eater of a cloud planet eater.
Yeah.
That doesn't really have, I don't know, a life, I guess. And so that was weird. It was we know Galactus being one of the biggest things in Marvel Comics. In general, it's Galactus is this massive thing, and then we get a cloud. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's weird.
It made sense, right? In the sense that they've already got Doctor Doom. You got a Silver Surfer. So I suppose they don't want too many villains in a piece. But you kind of question, well, is there not another villain we could have had instead then, which kind of replaced them to why have Doctor Doom there at all?
I didn't feel like Doctor Doom was really scary, commanding. The threat that Doctor Doom actually is, realistically, in the comic books, is huge, massive, right? We already know how we're gonna, we could already feel how it's going to be building going into the MCU, and just it felt like he had no weaponry, he had no status, no high stakes, nothing. Fear around him, nothing at all. And I think that was a bit of a shame. And I can't even remember the first one and how it was with him. But I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy the performance. I didn't buy him as Doctor Doom. Don't know. What about you guys?
I think the only purpose he had in the whole movie was that interaction that he did with Silver Surfer for the first time. And that Silver Surfer shot him back with his surfboard. And then he showed that clip to the military guys. That was it. He could have been done for the movie. Yeah. That was just showing that, hey, this is how the surfboard works. This is where his powers comes in. Take it away. That's it. Dr. Doom can go bye-bye. After that, he was pointless in the whole movie. I do agree with you on that. No menacing. That whole sequence when he got the surfboard and then these Fantastic Four chasing him, why? It makes no sense, that whole part. He knows the world is ending. He wants to conquer the world. There's no world if you don't give the surfer back. Why are you being a douchebag? I don't understand. I know you're a villain, but there's no world you can rule. Yeah, he was so annoying.
Yeah.
He was a really annoying character in this movie.
Yeah.
I think with the first movie, it showcased Doctor Doom a little bit more. Granted, I had high opinions of the second one, and it was not good. So I'm pretty sure if I watched the first one, it probably wouldn't be good either. But with the first one, Doctor Doom was the main villain. It was all about Doctor Doom and the rise of the Fantastic Four. So it showcased. I'm pretty sure it showcased more of who he is. But with the second one, like Forrest was saying, you had Galactus, you had Silver Surfer, and you had Doom. And because you had multiple things, none of them really showcased. Galactus was just this cloud that you kind of thought of. Silver Surfer ended up being pointless to a
projector.
sense. Yeah, he was just like there. Once he lost his board, he was pointless. The only thing he was there was like he put himself in front of Sue Storm, but I was like, without his board, he was
Oh my
nothing.
god, I gotta.
And then Doom, it was like
Oh.
exactly what Messi was saying. It was like, Doom, what are we doing here? Like, you how are you gonna rule anything when you've got nothing to rule? Like, it's still, and then you got the super short fight scene, and it was just like. You didn't really showcase anything in this movie because you threw too much in like a 90-minute period, which was really only a 60-minute period because you threw away a third of the movie.
Yeah, I think me and Messi are about to tag team about how awful a plot Sue Storm and Surfer had.
Dude,
oh my
what
god!
The actual F.
That is single-handedly the worst subplot I've ever seen in my life.
So dumb. So he destroyed countless of planets, but he stops this one because she reminds him of his lover back on his own planet. Makes no sense. I was like, okay, she's cheating on him. She's cheating on Reed Richards with the Silver Surfer. That's it.
That's where I was
basically
going.
it. She's cheating on him. That's mentally, physically, on every single term. She's cheating on him with him. That's it.
It is the most ludicrous thing ever. The scene that really made it was when she she goes invisible in order to get into the cell and speak to the Silver Surfer. I'm just like, what? Come on, mate. What benefit does this have for Sue whatsoever? Like, what benefit? Unless, like you say, Messi, she's about to go home and, you know, job done, right? What is the point in that? What relationship would they ever have? What friendship would they ever gain? Like, it's the most ludicrous. Like, I don't know if that was a comic story that they've just shoehorned into the film, but it completely made no sense. There was already 50 different plots that were trying to happen in an hour and a half film. Don't shoehorn that in, for God's sake.
It was so bad, and the last interaction they had on the almost to the end when she gets stabbed through the spear thing. She died. Whatever. The most dramatic. Let me rephrase that. The less dramatic, most death scene ever, because Reed didn't show any type of emotion when
wrote
she
that
died.
down on my notes.
There was no emotion when she died.
That wasn't really your wife, but like you just getting married, and you don't show any emotion, bro.
No emotion on there.
Guys, he's going to go back to the dance floor and hang out with Samantha and Tallulah. He's not worried.
He moved on already. As soon as he saw the spear, he's like, okay, that's it. I'm done.
He said, I got
this is my time.
Plan B and
God, he's
plan
like,
C
dodged
back
the
on the
bullet there.
dance.
God,
Oh
crazy.
my gosh.
He
I was
saves
like,
her.
what is going
Just
on?
magically, just like to her face and doing like weird hand gestures, and she's back alive. But oh my god, that was
It just wasn't
pointless,
justified,
bad.
was it?
It
And
was
then him
so
saving
bad.
himself, like, and Silver Surfer just kind of having this kind of like messiah complex. Like he was like, I'm going to save you guys now, because my whole depiction on everything, my whole purpose of what I was to do here and destroy all these planets for the sake of Galactus. No, this one woman has changed it all. And I mean,
Jessica Alba. I mean, it's Jessica Alba.
It's Jessica Alba. To be fair.
Oh my gosh.
Like I think anybody would have done the same thing if you were in that same position. Like at this point, it's Jessica Alba. You can't.
There's
you just
no other
can't.
Jessica Alba on any of the other planets. Who knows how many planets they
There's no-
destroyed?
According to the MCU, there's other human body types on other planets. There's no other blonde chick, kind of sexy like that on other planets. That reminds you of your lover? No? Okay. Just Jessica Alba.
He's with Jessica Faker on another planet, but he wants the real Jessica Alba. Yeah, ludicrous.
Yeah, we'll see.
I will say a cool thing though. Whoa,
Go
go
ahead.
Messi.
No,
Go.
I was going to ask a question that's going to probably lead to a whole conversation, so I don't want you to forget your thought because you normally do. So go ahead.
I do forget my thoughts. I was gonna say was one of the more positive things of this movie was showcasing how kind of cool Silver Surfer was in that first half of the movie. Like, whenever he grabbed Johnny by the neck and just like started taking him up to space, just like going under the surfboard, like whenever he felt like it, and doing certain things that kind of like made Surfer look cool, just going through buildings, all that stuff. So like it did make him look cool. Did it mean anything in the end? No, but like it was a cool concept that they just kind of
I think that's the one thing that they did right, was that they introduced Silver Surfer fairly well. Like it like, I think apart from the fact that he was flying around for the runtime of the movie for 28 minutes until he had his first confrontation with somebody, but like I think when they showed his powers and stuff and what he can do, and then there was genuine threat as well by grabbing Storm by the throat and all that kind of stuff. It kind of Human Torch. It kind of made it feel like he was going to be the villain, right? And obviously that was the point. And then obviously the nature of the character is he's kind of like a vigilante anyway. He's not on good side. He's not on the bad side. He's straight down the middle. He does what he feels like he's right within his own moral code. But like they had an opportunity there to go further with that. And again, like going back to the fact that it just wasn't justified because of reminding yourself of one, your lover from a past life. It doesn't make sense. Like it needed to have more opportunity of layering that story. But hey, we didn't get it because we only had 90 minutes.
Only had 90 minutes. Messi, what were you gonna say?
Okay, so my question is gonna be, what do you guys think of the general guy, the military guy? What was your
Brooklyn Nine-Nine guy?
Brooklyn Nine-Nine guy.
No! Oh
I
my
rewatched
god!
it. I was like, huh, that's 9-9 right there.
Yeah. So
Honestly,
what was your whole thing with him? Like, what was your? I thought he sucked. I hated him, but
He did. I couldn't not see Captain Raymond Holt. I couldn't not see it. The moment he came on, he even had his hat, wearing the hat the same way that he does when he's in 9-9. I was like, Raymond, you're being Raymond. What are you doing? Like, stop it.
This is his past life before he joined the Force and became a captain. This is before, yeah.
Now we know MCU, the Brooklyn Nine-Nine is now MCU canon. It's official. It's official.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it either. It was like kind of just thrown in there.
Yeah.
And every scene that this guy showed up, he was a different, completely person. One time he was sucking up to the Fantastic Four, then was bashing them. And then it was, oh my god, you guys are the greatest thing ever, bashing them again. Like, I don't understand, like, the relationship or the hate that this guy had towards them. Yeah. But it makes no sense on every other scene that he showed up. Because when he came for help, you got the help, now you guys suck, we don't want you, freak, and then whatever, that whole football thing, interaction came around, that he said, oh, I have the hottest chick in the world. One, she's not, she's hot, yes, but she's also a scientist, she's one of the greatest minds, also as Ben, they're all a scientist, they were super dumb on this movie, by the way. The only smart person in it was Richard. But the whole interaction with the general guy, I hated him, and the whole it made no sense of the hate and love relationship that he had towards them in the whole entire movie.
For me, it was when he introduced Doctor Doom back. I was like, you're a government official. Whatever happened in that first movie must have been pretty damn, big for you to kind of be like, oh yeah, no, I'll bring him back in, because like surely the government would have been like, no way, you're Doctor Doom. You probably tried to destroy the planet in the previous movie. But like that justification of bringing him in was like, well, hang on, I don't get that. That just seems way too easy as well. He
didn't do anything either.
Yeah.
He just hid in the back of the lab working on his all cool tech.
Yeah.
So he was pointless again in the whole movie. Another pointless thing.
I'm gonna be in defence in my corner over here. So number one, I think Messi, you correctly identified that. Clearly, I think a lot of it was again the script, right? So the guy changing each scene is a completely different portrayal of that character. So I think that that's to the detriment of the actor to be able to convey that appropriately. I actually think that 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 character being so kind of vanilla and a bit not really like there being much there. I think, to be honest, because there's so much packed in this movie, I don't think that's actually a bad thing to have a couple of characters. Like, he's just a stereotypical general, like, I'm just coming in, I'm a government spokesperson, this is my and that's it, right? And to be honest, if it was any more flavoursome than that, I think it would have just added to the fucking the intensity of the movie and the sheer kind of like, what on earth is going on, right? So I think for me, it wasn't too bad. And then Matt, when you're talking about kind of like Doctor Doom, bringing Doctor Doom in, even though 2 minutes ago they were completely against him, I think you could argue that if it had been written correctly, is that not a comment on governments across the world that, you know, they will, you know, one day they'll have one policy on something and then the next day they'll have a completely different policy on it, right? Then actually, you know, if anyone in this setup, in this movie, can have a view that completely is at odds with everyone else, it would be the government official or the kind of, you know.
That sounds like it's something really interesting that should be in the movie, but it wasn't. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Unfortunately, they decided to have Reed dancing instead of that. So
they were like, I've got this really good idea, guys. No. That's just going to take up too much time. We want to see Reed do his dancing. All right.
Let's make some room for the robots. Thank you.
Oh man.
God.
Another thing was I know you guys kind of alluded to it before, but the way that Surfer I guess killed Galactus, bro, this man could have done that like who knows how many planets ago. Like, he killed Galactus, and then as we saw in the somewhat post-credit scene, that it was like Surfer was still alive, obviously alluding to, I guess he could still be alive. So it was like, why didn't you just do that before? And he's like, I have no choice.
Because he didn't meet Jessica Alba before, Danny, mate. Come on. Jessica Alba wasn't there to open his mind up to the possibility of freedom.
Okay, but if you think about it, his options... Okay, let's say Galactus first comes to his planet, right? His option was A, be a slave and take out all these planets, or just take out Galactus in that moment. And he's like, nah, I'd rather be a slave. You know, the fact that he chose to rather be a slave, that means Jessica Alba was way hotter than whatever wife he had back at the other planet, because it's just like...
For him to just call it quits. He just call it quits. It's like, I'm not serving this guy no more. I'm like, no, I'm done. It's just going straight to his face or whatever, cloud face, and destroy it and make an atomic bomb and destroy him.
It's so true. It's like, yeah, I've got a family at home, but actually, I'll give this a go until I get to Earth, and then I'll go, actually, this is enough now. Come on, we got rid of enough planets now. I think it's time to. But yeah, I think it's not, and also it was we get an allusion with Silver Surfer, so we kind of understand. We get an old name for him, Norrin Rod, which is in keeping with the comics, and but what we don't really get enough of, for me, so we have such an emphasis on the board, right, and the powers of the board and what it allows Silver Surfer to do and all that stuff, but we get no. And we meet and we see the Galactus, but we get no connection of the two, right? So without that board, Norrin was Norrin. Why did we not? We could have almost got a flashback scene. For me, like, this was the power. This is why the power was given. You know, that would have been far more interesting and would have provided far more of a backstory for what we're about to see than what we got.
100%.
I'd rather see that than the whole pointless 30 minutes in the first part of the wedding bullcrap. Just give us 15 minutes of wedding and 15 minutes of the backstory of Silver. So I think that would have been a cool introduction to the movie. Because, again, it's the rise of the Silver Surfer. It's not the rise of the Fantastic Four. And I think the only rise that he did was just racing Jessica Alba back to life.
If they were clever as well, if they would have done that, they would have had an opportunity there to have their own spin-off with Silver Surfer. Like, you know, again, like, Silver Surfer felt like it was one of the strongest, if not the strongest performance out there. So they had an opportunity to kind of branch that out potentially into something else. And I think if they had that beginning bit in the intro and just a little flashback, Forrest knows that I love a good flashback. So, that would have just made so much more sense.
I'm glad you said back, mate. I got a bit worried what you were going to admit to then. Forrest knows I love a good flash. Yeah. No, yeah. We love a flashback. Big fans.
So I have a
I can
question.
agree with that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it was established that the board gives the powers to Silver Surfer, the guy. What other powers? Because at this point, when he was in jail and he was tied up and whatever, and he's talking to Sue Storm, he projects something on his abs, like Galactus and all this stuff. So, what powers does he have outside of the board? Or do you guys think that was kind of a little dumb? I thought it was a little dumb out of nowhere.
You could also see her when she was invisible. It was like, I know you're there.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I was alluding to, Messi, because like, why did Galactus choose this guy? Like, what was the as far as I'm aware, unless I missed something in the film, we didn't get really any reason why Norrin Rod was chosen out of millions of people to be the person to do this, right? And I feel like that's what we needed to see in order to see the potential superhero powers that he had outside of the board, way before the board was given to him. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I never really thought. Yeah, of course he managed to see the invisible storm. So it's quite. Yeah,
what are your thoughts on? Yeah, go.
Is it like with Thanos though? Like he had his purpose was to answer from a different entity on a celestial cosmic level. Like maybe does Galactus have this kind of army of people that he's kind of doing it, and like simultaneously around that time have we got kind of people like Thanos going around doing the same thing, trying to but in a different kind of space. They're eating the world, he's trying to get rid of half the population to save that from happening. So it's kind of like you've got this kind of like conflict happening. I think that needed more explanation really, because again,
it would have been
had
nice.
An opportunity.
It would have been nice to get that in the movie. We didn't.
Yeah.
You can't have this short of a movie and take out 30 minutes. If you're going to do that, you might as well make it 2 hours and have 30 more minutes of important stuff. But what were your thoughts on our quote-unquote super scroll that we got, but not really a scroll? It was just Johnny combining all the powers of the Fantastic Four and showcasing that. So I thought that was pretty cool. I wish they had showcased that longer, because it was like a 10-second fight scene until he got smacked with Ben Grimm and with the crane, and then boom, it was over. But
I tell you what, at the beginning, Danny, but you said about how you're talking about effects, right? And effects from then versus like now, right? And the things we're getting now. If anything shone a light on how good the effects were at times in this film compared to now, if you think about Gaia in A Secret Invasion and how they combated that compared to how they dealt with Johnny with the powers, it's like night and day, mate. Like if Gaia, if that scene was done like the one we saw just in Silver Surfer, like, why not? It's already been done. Why? So much better as well.
You're totally right, and I didn't even think about that. I know Messi has talked about this before on a couple of different episodes where he's like, if you already kind of have the same format of how you did it before in the past, why don't you just reuse the same format? Because you're not really making anything new. You're using the same whatever format. I'm not a movie guy. He's a filmmaker type of dude, so he knows that stuff. But like, it's like it should be easier 17 years later with more technology and all this stuff to recreate it.
Yeah,
and also it's all right to completely recreate it, because actually you are then doing a motif in like you're saying, Messi, right? You'll know you are harking back to that film, so that's what fans want to see. So just replicate the same thing, man. Like, hey, you've got the abilities, so just do the same. Don't try and revolutionize by bringing in like computer animation that just looked massively out of place. Do it how you did it 20 years ago.
What's
It's fine.
what's the betting that they forgot that they've done it before? Like, do you think?
We forgot that this movie ever was made. Was it that bad that we forgot that we did it over 10 years ago? Yeah, I guess.
They're just like, Kevin Feige, you remember that movie that you worked on? No,
I don't remember. No, what you're talking about.
Fantastic Four. Oh, that would be funny.
So I will ask this, because I'm sure you guys have heard the news of our new Fantastic Four, at least somewhat of some of it, which is Pedro Pascal being the new Reed Richards, and everyone else is still TBD. Except there's rumors, Silver Surfer's a woman, Anya Taylor-Joy's Silver Surfer. Just all these casting either confirmations and rumors. So what are your thoughts on hearing these castings?
I think for we spoke about this recently in another podcast, but I think for Pedro Pascal, I mean, when that announcement happened, the leak came out, like, it just out of nowhere. Like, no, I don't think anybody expected that at all. And having him in the MCU is exciting, but I'm of the opinion I don't think it's that role that is exciting. I don't think he should be playing that type of role. I think he needs to be a villain, really. I'd be interested to see him playing like a big bad. But I don't know. I mean, Forrest, you've got views on Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, I just very similar, really. I think Pedro up to now has paid. You know, you've got Joel in The Last of Us. You've got Mandalorian. He's incredible.
Yeah,
but he is incredible at a darker sense of character. And I think Reed Richards. I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued by the casting. I don't necessarily think it's a bad casting, because actually, I think the problem we've got is that we've had Iron Man, right? We've had Tony Stark, and there are parallels. They're not identical, Reed Richards and Tony Stark, but there are certainly parallels. My cat is about to say hello, so apologies for that. Hello to Peggy, who's now another member of the team. But there are parallels, so I can understand why they might want to go in a different direction. Sorry, Matt, you're probably going to have to take over, mate.
Every time it happens in the podcast, it's just a delight.
So, what are your thoughts on Fantastic Four?
It's like she knows. It's like she knows you're doing it. She's part of it. She looks straight down the barrel of the camera and is like, what? And what of Pedro Pascal, guys?
She's got, you know, she's more confident than I am in front of screen. Look at her.
Oh man, Messi, what do you think about Pedro Pascal being? We haven't talked about it on air before.
I am a huge Pedro Pascal fan. When I heard this news, I was like, I'm all for it. The thing is, yes, I do agree on the sense, like, he may be not the perfect actor for this specific role. I understand that. But we also got two different actors. We have whoever this guy name was, I don't know his name, and then Miller for the second reboot. They were not great. They were cool. Yeah, they interpret the character as to the best of their possibilities, and they did good in the sense of making the character good. But we this is a different actor. I think this actor, Pedro Pascal, is personally, I think he's a better actor than those two. Because I'm probably being biased, because I do like Pedro Pascal. He's an awesome actor in my eyes. But he also has range. I see him on different type of movies, different type of genres of films, and he portrays every single genre how it should be on all of those counts. So now he's a superhero. Well, he's been a superhero on Mando and a little bit on The Last of Us. Not superhero, but the hero type. And
yeah.
And I do agree on Forrest that on those two roles, he's a more of a darker, like Mando and Joel, they're super dark compared to Reed Richards. So it's going to be a challenge for him, of course, because he's mostly to the darker guy, more calmer guy. But I'm both for it. I cannot wait for it to prove everybody wrong that he is Reed Richards, and I'm so happy.
And so, Messi, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. So the other thing that I remember me and Matt were talking about is, so Pedro Pascal's age, right? So if you look at the previous Reed Richards, he'll be one of the oldest, if not the oldest, portrayal of that character. Now, obviously, they are bringing Fantastic Four in for the first time, and if they're going to be used in a lengthy amount of time, he's going to be he'll be mid 50s by the time we get any kind of Fantastic Four sequel. So I suppose for me was the biggest thing with his casting, is that they're starting the lead character for Fantastic Four could be mid 50s by the time they even get a sequel. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So
don't know.
My thoughts on that, and actually I was talking to this to a couple of my friends, that people were that's one of the other reasons of why they don't think the role for Pedro Pascal is perfect for this character, because of his age. On Madness, Multiverse of Madness, that Reed Richards had kids already with Sue Storm and whatever. He has kids. The new wave of the Avengers or the MCU is the young Avengers. The adults are whatever. So whenever the introduction of the Fantastic Four, those powers and characters already are established on their own fields. They're already the Fantastic Four. They've been around. They're just doing their own thing. Where were they on Endgame or all these major things? God knows where. I don't know. But me thinking they're not going to do an origin story, and if they do, maybe a flashback about it. They're going to continue with the story. They're going to have kids already, maybe a little bit younger than to not be part of the Young Avengers, because they're probably too kiddish. But in a couple movies, maybe like an older Reed Richards, older Sue Storm, older Johnny Storm, older Ben, and then they're gonna stop it. They're not gonna put more older characters. They're gonna put the Young Avengers, because again, the MCU is for kids. It's not for us. So they're gonna give the younger audience their stuff. When we got Iron Man, we were kids. We were not adults. So I think I think that's where they're gonna do. They're gonna eventually give it to the kids.
I think you're spot on. I'd also say, I'd also add to that one of the things that I picked up on when we watched back this Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, was that it had very much early noughties attitudes towards women, towards how we bring in female characters, potentially got children, got a wife, and with, if they are going to make Silver Surfer a female as well, I think what we are going to look at is a much better 2020s vision and guise into this type of a movie, right? And how we can move away from, I think they've got, because they're tackling this film, they've got to move away from early noughties attitudes, and I think this is one of the ways they can manage to do that.
Yeah, I got a couple thoughts on this. First one being, with all the downfalls and roller coasterness of Marvel, I'm sure they had a studio meeting with all the executives, and they're like, look, we need a new Zaddy in the MCU. Tony Stark is gone. Let's go get Pedro Pascal. We need a Zaddy. So they did. They got a Zaddy, and they got Pedro Pascal. But in all seriousness, the two things, I feel like casting really tells a lot in the type of direction that they're going in. And so by us seeing an older Pedro Pascal, an older actor in Pedro Pascal, it could mean a lot of things. So like as Messi was saying, they're probably already going to be established. I mean, even before the castings, we had a lot of rumors that it wasn't going to be an origin story. I think they might have even confirmed that it wasn't going to be an origin story, so that they were already going to be established. So that's one thing. Obviously, they're going to be older. Another thing is, as long as they're still going with the Kang storyline, Kang has a relation with Nathaniel Richards, which is a descendant of Reed Richards. So if they're already established, maybe they have kids, maybe Nathaniel Richards potentially is a thing by the time we see Fantastic Four. Maybe he's like a little baby or something that. Who knows? That could have a relation to the Kang storyline that hopefully we're still getting. So that could be another thing, that it's like maybe our thoughts of the Fantastic Four is not even what we think it's going to be, where it's just where they're like the main people. Maybe it's like they're kind of like the mentors for their kids, and the kids are like the main Fantastic Four. So they could go in a lot of different directions, but by us not seeing a younger origin story of Fantastic Four, it kind of like starts to show their cards a little bit on where they could potentially go.
That's a good point.
Could you imagine the hardcore fans, Danny, if that happened though? Whoa, there'll be complaints all over Twitter within minutes. Reed Richards isn't the main character in this version. No, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, they would probably storm Kevin Feige's house and
Yeah.
But I think you're spot on though. I think you're bang on in terms of, you know, they've got to tackle it differently in order to warrant them being included. I think. So.
yeah.
I mean, is it gonna suck? Maybe not seeing Richard in his prime. It's gonna suck because we know the Fantastic Four to be one of the originals family of superhero teams and ever in comics. One of the first creations of Stan Lee. Like Stan Lee, one of the first characters. Me and Danny had a trivia about it. Johnny Storm was one of the first characters he created earlier in his career. So like I know these characters mean a lot as fans. It means a lot to us because one, it meant a lot greater to a person that we look up to. So not seeing the Fantastic Four on his prime, it may suck a little, but like Forrest said, they have to change the story a little bit, how they do it on the MCU because of how far the MCU has become. So like even for Spider-Man, we didn't even get a origin story for him because we already seen it. We already know what happens of how he gets his powers and the deal that he has to do. With the line, the great power comes with great responsibility thing. We didn't get down to the very end, but it was already established. So with them, they have to play it safe and they have to make sure that they don't mess it up with giving us an origin story.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this now because I think Danny as well. Your points with, with Nathaniel, as well. Like it's that there's something in there because obviously we still don't really know what's going on with the Kang, dynasty, with how that's going to be played out, and Jonathan Majors in the role and all that kind of stuff. It's still very much up in the air. And in terms of like their get out or development, moving that forward without cheapening anything, without losing any of the stuff that they've achieved with Loki Series 2, that might be something that they can connect to quite easily and still get the sense of fan service as well, but then be able to kind of move it into a different vein. I never thought of that, and actually that's changed my opinion a little bit, actually. Yeah. I'm excited now. Yeah.
I wonder, right, what are our thoughts? And sorry, I know we're taking in a complete turn for what's going on now rather than this movie. It's quite clear what our opinions are of this movie by the fact that we're talking about the modern day version instead. But what are your thoughts on Ben Grimm, The Thing? Because I think, looking at how they're dealing with the casting, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a non-typical Ben Grimm. And by that, I'm thinking not this specific actor, but just because of his physique, something more in keeping with like Michael Cera. I think that the Thing is going to bulk up as part of the power, but will actually be quite a Timothée Chalamet like esque thin character or actor.
I mean, didn't it on the reboot? Wasn't it Ben like a scrawny, skinny kid?
Oh, was he? I don't think I saw the reboot. Then. Potentially.
Let me double check. I think he was.
I think he was.
He was scrawny, because I know from this movie, he's not big. He was a little bit bigger than normal. I don't know. Bigger than Danny. You could also say the same for Chris Evans, because on this movie he became the thing for a short period of time, and Chris Evans has a more of a muscular, skinny physique than Ben does.
Yeah.
So
it's all got. We all know who needs to be playing this role. All right, it's Dwayne Johnson. Okay?
No.
We need the Rock playing a Rock.
No, because we're either going to get Dave Bautista, who's playing his same bloody character over and over again, or we're going to get Dwayne the Rock Johnson. It's only those two people. It can't be. If it's either one of those two people, that's the most unoriginal thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's lazy casting, yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be so
there was
bad.
a rumor when She-Hulk was like starting up and all that stuff, that the guy from How I Met Your Mother, I forget his name. I don't know if you guys seen the show. I'll look it up. But he was going to be Ben. I don't know what the rumor stands right now, because it's been quite a while since that rumor has resurfaced, but I thought that would have been a cool casting, because he's a little bit older. He's not built like The Rock or Dave Bautista, nothing like. He's just normal physique. I think he would have been cool. He's a cool actor. He's a little bit comedy type of thing.
Is that the guy in I Love You, Man?
Yeah, forgetting Sarah Marshall as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
He is Marshall, yeah. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I think he'd be great. I think, I agree, Missy. I think it needs to be a comedy-driven actor. I think it needs to be not someone who's got a typical physique that the Thing would have. I think I want to see the animation department stretch themselves and see how we see the development of the Thing come out from someone who's not that physique already. It's really easy to get someone like The Rock.
I really want to see the
room.
animation department stretch themselves. Yeah. I mean, given the CGI that we've had the past couple of years, I'm not so sure about that one.
It's their redemption arc, Danny. It's the redemption arc.
I sure hope so. Speaking
Jason
of Ben
Segel.
Grimm, I do want to say, Jason Segel. Do want to say real quick, Ben Grimm was literally like the most side character of side characters in the Silver Surfer movie, and it was actually pretty disappointing.
There was no story.
There was no story with him. He was just like, he would pop up, say a couple lines here and there, and that was it. Like, he was the most side character of all time. It was pretty bad.
100%.
But what do you guys think? Another thing is, what's interesting is Pedro Pascal, obviously, the new Mr. Fantastic. Like Messia just said, potential rumor, Jason Segel being Ben Grimm. This one's a fairly strong rumor, is that Vanessa Kirby is Sue Storm. So then we're getting all these rumors that are somewhat, at least the Vanessa Kirby one has legs, but those are young actors and actresses. I was looking up the age difference between Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby. It was like 13 years or something like that. I was like, okay, so if we're going with the old actors, then you got to cast an older, at least a somewhat older woman. Yeah. But now there's like really, really strong rumors that Vanessa Kirby is Sue Storm. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? Are they old or are they young? Or maybe they just want an age difference of.
Do they? I mean, do they do like a flashback where they're all younger and they just age up Vanessa and age down? Like, do you know what I mean? Like Pedro when they go into that. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it?
I mean, it'll be hard to age down Pedro Pascal. That's it. Yeah. Trying to get like Pedro's got like really lovely hair.
Oh man, that's funny.
That would be funny.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. Is there a specific actor? I know Messi just mentioned Jason Segel, but is there a specific actor that you guys would like to see for one of the remaining three people, or even Silver Surfer, if you want to go there?
What a question, Danny.
I haven't actually had any thought into it really, because I mean,
I really wanted to see Margot Robbie as Sue Storm. Messi
I
was
really?
an adamant hater of that, but as she has killed every role that she has done, we've seen her as whatever the girl's name is, Harley Quinn. We've seen her as Harley Quinn, so
yeah.
we've seen her in that superhero-esque role, superhero film-esque role. So I think she would do really good as Sue Storm. Messi absolutely hates that idea, but
Do you know what I would really like, because she's an incredible actress and she would give layers to that character that we haven't seen. So I don't know if you two are aware, she's done stuff in America. Jodie Comer, do you know? Have you ever seen? Matt, what would be the series
Killing
that
Eve.
would be Killing Eve?
Yeah.
You know, BBC series called Killing Eve. So Jodie Comer plays a character in that, and she's an incredible character actor. So she can play she's very versatile, isn't she, Matt?
Yeah.
In terms of
she
what
was
she
in
plays.
a Free Guy. That's what I remember.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And I think her and Pedro would work really well, because I think Jodie would be older than the one you've mentioned already.
Definitely
So
older
it'd
than
be
Margot Robbie, I'll tell you that.
a bit. Yeah, she'd be closer. Is she younger?
She's
30.
What?
Never mind.
Yeah, okay.
still-
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not then.
Margot
baby.
Margot Robbie's 33.
That is
Okay.
mad. Jodie Comer is 30.
Jodie Comer is 30.
That's insane. I mean, but I still, I'll stand by it. I think she would be incredible. Oh wow!
You can see the articles now. Pedro Pascal comes out like he's a cradle snatcher. All he wants is like young girls. He gets cancelled in the first minute.
Pedro Pascal,
God.
48 years old. It is what it is.
But this is what I'm on about, Messi, man. Pedro's casting's ruined it all. We can't. Who can you put with him? I don't know anyone who can put with him.
I want Sir Ian McKellen playing the Human Torch.
Oh man, I mean-
flame on.
it's
I think Miriam Margolyes, Matt. Miriam Margolyes should be.
Yes, brilliant.
So Miriam
she is so funny. She's a national treasure in the UK.
She was in the Harry Potter franchise as well, so you'll know her from that. But yeah, but yeah, no, I it's going to be interesting. Who are they going to get as Susan Storm with that age gap? I can't really think of any actors that who are around that age.
Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez.
I don't know. She's in her older.
And to be fair, if you look at Jessica Alba, it's not a million miles away.
Bring back Jessica Alba.
Bring back Jessica Alba.
She's in that age frame. She's 42, so I mean that's kind of getting there. Bring back Jessica Alba.
Oh my! Could you imagine though? Could you? They could. They could. They've done worse things.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I do want to bring up one more point. Not a point, but just one more quick topic. Just because this is somewhat pretty recent news. There was a news article. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but Taika Waititi, the director of Thor 3, Thor 4, a very controversial guy, but he came out with a quote that he took on the role of directing Thor just for money, and that he was like, yeah, I didn't care about Thor at all. I actually picked Thor because I saw that it was like a pointless like series or comics or all this stuff. So he's like, yeah, I kind of just did it, and I was poor, so I just took the job. He said it was his quote was, and Thor, let's face it, it's probably the least popular franchise. I never read Thor as a kid and all this stuff. So like he kind of. Hearing this actually like really made me sad. I mean, granted, I'm not a filmmaker like in that world as you guys, all three of you guys are. But me, I'm like, I want my directors to have like a love and passion for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And hearing something like this, it's like.
In all honesty, I would probably assume what actually happened is Marvel said, sorry mate, you're not coming back for the next Thor film, and he's gone, I think it's just his way of throwing his toys out of the pram.
Yeah.
I don't
It
really
just
care
bought
about
her.
it anyway. Yeah, I don't really care about it anyway because I don't really rate that character and I only did it for money. No, you didn't, mate. It was a massive Marvel project. He's one of the biggest Marvel characters. You're talking shit. He's throwing his toys out the pram, and it's unfortunate.
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
that's the case.
It would
I think
disappoint me
not.
too if
He's
that
like
was
a
true.
little kid.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He's got this kind of like immaturity about him. So
Yeah.
I think
He's pretty
inherently
petty. He's a
probably
petty guy, but-
yeah, I think he's probably just kind of fabricating things as well, just for the media's sake. I mean, it's got to hurt. It's got to hurt not being told to come back and saying so sorry. You can't do that. You can't do this. I think it's kind of. I think that would be sad if it was true. It would disappoint me too.
I thought I read it. Initially, I read it like you guys were saying. He is that type of guy who would fabricate.
Yeah.
But initially, I was like, that's really depressing because like I've been saying this with Messi a lot off air. Iman Vellani, who plays Miss Marvel. This girl, I said she should be the next president of Marvel Studios whenever Kevin Feige decides to retire, because this girl like genuinely knows her stuff. She's a true fan. The interviews that she just has about Marvel is really fantastic. Like, she knows more than probably any of us combined. All of us combined. It's like she really knows her stuff. She was even asked like, "Oh, what is it going to take for the fandom to get back to what it was like pre-Endgame, like that hype for Endgame?" And she was like, "I think it's less about just pumping out projects. It's more about like having people care about the characters that you're making films and shows about and stuff like that." Like, I was like, this girl needs to be the next president of Marvel Studios because like she really knows her stuff, and she has a genuine care, and I just love seeing people who like actually care for whether it's acting, directing, whatever it is, people that actually care for what they're doing, because it usually leads to a better product. Yeah.
Nice.
Messi, do you have anything else?
I know that we're way off from the actual topic, but I did want to say earlier, and I did forget to say it. We were talking about other superhero movies coming out in the same year as this one, and one of them was Spider-Man 3, and they're very similar in the sense they have multiple heroes, multiple villains, and a weird dancing in the middle of the movie. So
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah.
yeah, so I was gonna say that the director for Fantastic Four took inspiration from this movie, from Spider-Man 3, and put it on his movie. I think the inspiration that he took were the bad things of the things that he should have not done on Sam Raimi, that it should have not done on that movie, and he did it on its own. That's why this movie sucks so bad, because he took whatever was bad on Spider-Man 3 and put it on his own movie, and only put it for another an hour and 30 minutes. So we're seeing the bad things on Fantastic Four, or the bad things are on Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, so all the bad things that you see on that movie
See,
are
and that's an hour
100%
30
here.
minutes with credits.
Yeah.
What, the
You
third
gotta
one?
at least add like 5 more minutes with credits.
Wow. I mean, this is the thing. I think it goes to show. I think back then, superhero movies were very different. I mean, what's crazy to think is that a year later we got The Dark Knight. Like, if you think of that, yeah, exactly right. You think of the Silver Surfer
what are we doing
movie, and then you think of The Dark Knight. They are completely different movies in terms of tone, in terms of how the stories are told. It's crazy. So clearly, back then, even at that point, so close to introducing Iron Man in this, in 2008 as well, so close to that, they didn't really know what the identity was. The only book that they had to go by was this Spider-Man trilogy, and they quite clearly just ran from the thread of that, and it was very comic booky. It was very kind of adjusted for a younger audience and stuff. And yeah, you can see that trend is definitely in this movie as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can also
So-
say that you can tell the major differences between two different comic book or different studios. Like, Fox made Fantastic Four, and then DC with Warner Brothers did The Dark Knight. You can tell the difference on, like you said, the age. Who was the movie made for? Batman was made for us, for adults, because that movie was not for kids.
Yeah,
I don't think it was. And obviously, Fantastic Four is a PG. It's a PG movie. It's not even PG-13. I think the only bad thing, like Forrest said earlier, was the woman stuff. Like they started doing the stuff in early in the movies, like with Jessica Alba being naked in the movie on a PG movie. So like, why? So I think like the different studios. I think what DC holds a very strong piece of my heart and mind, because it's so different and it's darker and it's better and a better story. And again, it goes back to the director who was actually directing the movie. A crappy director makes a crappy movie, and Christopher Nolan, he's a god on movie directings. So there's a lot of things that goes into it, I guess, and it's, like you said, it's a year difference. What could have been done better with a better director or different ways or different storytelling? Dark Knight is great.
Yeah.
So,
How much do you think James Gunn is currently trying to twist Christopher Nolan's arm to do another film? By the way,
Back.
I can almost guarantee James Gunn is like having conversations with him already, because he knows if Christopher Nolan stepped foot in DC Studios, it would ignite a passion in fans that hasn't been seen for 20 years.
That's crazy.
I mean, I would love to see it.
We need to get that
Nolan
Robin movie.
Did just do, what is it called?
Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer. I was going to say Interstellar, not Interstellar. He did just do Oppenheimer, so maybe he's just taking a little bit of a break for now. But granted, DC stuff doesn't really start till 2025-ish time frame.
It's perfect timing, Danny.
It is.
He's got some time for it at the moment. So come on, James, do your hardest.
Yeah, they'll be like, hey, actually, we're going to make you direct the new Batman again.
To be honest, because I don't think he would do Batman, because I think that runs a risk and all of that stuff. Do you know what? I would put Christopher Nolan, and this is going to sound odd, but I would put him on the Swamp Thing. Because can you imagine how dark and edgy that movie would be?
Yeah.
Swamp Thing.
Christopher Nolan does like to... He does like more darker stuff, so that would be a good thing. But he's also more of a... he's a very like out there director, makes things more kind of like, I wouldn't say more complicated than they should be, but like all his movies have like there's
Actual
layering
effects.
to the movie.
Actual effects, not CGI, not this bullcrap.
That's true.
Imagine the Swamp Thing being an actual guy with actual swamp and vines and all that stuff. No CGI, all actual costumes.
Yeah, could you imagine?
Actual vines. Dude, that would be great.
That's I'm starting a petition. Let's go.
That would be an interesting one. So capping off this episode, if you guys were to rate Fantastic Four out of 10, what would be your rating out of 10?
4 point. No, not even that. 4 out of 10.
4.
Yeah.
4 out of 10. 4.
I would go. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Okay. Wow, messy.
-2. Nah, I'm kidding.
Wow, you hated that movie.
I did. It was so bad. It's so cringe and all this. I'm not gonna go into it again. Watch the
I'll
episode.
be
If
honest,
you got
I'll
this
give
far.
it a 4 out of 10. Look, it was a bad movie. Let's just be real. It was
Yeah.
bad. I'm actually pretty disappointed. I wish I never resaw this, because I always had high opinions about this, and now I don't.
Tainted forever.
So maybe I should have never resaw it, and I could have just told my kids, yeah, this is the best movie ever, and then whatever. But it did have its bright spots. So showcasing his powers a little bit throughout that first half of the movie. Seeing Johnny with all the powers, at least for a little bit. So it had its bright spots here and there. Ultimately, not a very good film. So I would also give it a 4 out of 10. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's fair.
So
rating.
Forrest, Matt, where can the listeners find you guys? Either Instagram or Spotify, like whatever it is. Where can they go find your work?
Yeah.
Go on, Matt,
Yeah,
mate.
so we're on our main platform that we use is Instagram for our social media, and that's at Don't Be a Hero Podcast. You can follow us on X, Twitter at DBAH Podcast. We're on YouTube as well at Don't Be a Hero Podcast. We do uploads kind of like clips and highlights. But yeah, in terms of like watching it and listening as well, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there, and we upload every Wednesday.
What about our stuff?
All right, so same old, always on the major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also on YouTube to listen to the full thing. If you want to see clips, you can always follow us on Instagram, on Snapchat. Wait, we're not little girls. We don't have Snapchat. On TikTok and X, and also on Threads sometimes. I'm still getting used to Threads. I forgot that's the thing.
Same.
But check us out whenever we do post things on there. But other than that, I do want to say thank you guys, Mr. Ford and Mr. Matt, for being here
Thank
today
you.
talking
You guys.
about this movie.
Yeah.
I wish it could have been a better movie that we could talk about, but hey, we
Next
can
time.
all be here talking trash about this movie.
Let's
But
hope the
always next
Marvel
time.
version of Silver Surfer movie Fantastic Four is better than this.
We'll definitely we'd love to come on and talk about that one.
Oh, yeah.
Bring us on.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. It's been great being on.
Yeah, a
being
lot
on
of fun.
it, so
Cheers,
it's been
guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
as
that-
always, unqualified heroes. Oh.